Hey there guys, welcome back to the Tournament Report with yours truly, Paul Reissmann. Today we're taking a look at the recent OGP that we had from Games & Geek this past weekend. Without further ado, let's dig right into things.
This session brought to you by Odyssey Games for pre-orders and sealed product, CCG Prime for tons of singles and supplies, Cardo Doko for international rulers looking for products, and FowlLibrary.com for articles and wonderful deck lists, as well as our guest lecturer members King Pearlshine, Vite Ramen, Mognite, and Darren Noblock. Class is in session.
All right, guys, welcome back to the Tournament Report. We are going to be digging into a really fantastic online GP that we had back this previous weekend here on June 4th and I believe June 3rd and 4th is when the whole tournament went about, if I have the calendar in my brain on correctly. We had about 50 people in this tournament, and there was a wide variety of decks, as there always is. But what we're really going to be seeing in this is some really interesting stuff from the new set that finally got dropped last month. So this is the first tournament we're going to be seeing some of the new cards in. And of course, one of the ones we're going to have to talk about is one that John Paul Clintworth was piloting, Brad the Amnesiac Immortal. So this card counts for all different attributes while it is in hand. And what allows you to really utilize this card well is stuff like Chivalry's Tears. This is an X cost spell, which means you have to banish some stuff in your hand according to its text, which Brad fits the criteria for. Because he counts as any attribute, he can count for the cost of things like Chivalry's Tears, Last Movement, Conflict of Memory and Soul, Roar of Dark Blessing, and a ton of other just really good effects such as these. One of the other cards that's not in the main board is Light Curtain, so you can banish Brads to start dealing a bunch of damage and getting some life back. Really interesting package that we have in Brad right now. And so the best way to utilize that, according to the JPK, of course, is to pilot it with Falchion, who is naturally already kind of a control deck anyway. We've lost some cards to the recent ban list, actually quite a few cards. So what you're going to be seeing here is obviously no Engineer. It's been banned for a while now with Falchion, but now it's just outright gone. There are some other cards that are just completely off the list, including Child of the Red Moon. So you're going to start seeing things like Child of the Wind Moon cropping up in your sideboard a little bit more. Some other cards like Sprinting Steward being completely banned and gone from the game as well. So the control decks are feeling pretty darn good right about now. All of that being said, we also got cards like Rayman, which is definitely a control card. A 3-drop, you can cast this and all of a sudden your opponent doesn't get enter effects. That's really strong, especially right now when there's very few cards that can stop enter effects wholesale. We have things like Lorite and some other things that stop those enter abilities on the chase, but Ray says it's really not even worth casting the card because they're not going to come in with any effects. So Brad and Ray combined with things like Never End, which is a classic control card alongside things like Feath Sing, to really create a really strong board state in which your opponent doesn't get to play anything, and even if they do, it's probably going to just not do anything, or it's just going to get wrecked right off the gate. So congratulations to JPK. I mean, he's doing what Falchion has always done, but now he just gets this amazing additional tech in the Brad engine. So congratulations for getting first place. Next up, we're looking at Matthew Lindley, who also plays with Falchion. There's a little bit of a different setup here in the sense that he is definitely playing Brad. He's only playing one copy, but he's not going as heavy into the Brad package as John Paul was. So you're going to be seeing a little bit of a different style of gameplay here. It's more of a classic control deck in that sense. You're seeing things like Fiola to stop things from actually resolving. You're seeing the new Rumsfeld to turn off some decks and just be a huge beat stick on its own. Just keep in mind that this card's text has been errated, so instead of saying what it says here on screen, instead it says all rulers lose automatic and activate abilities. It still gets +2/+2 for each J ruler your opponent controls, but now it's all rulers lose automatic and activate abilities. That's a little bit more balanced, and it's not quite that way on the card, so bear with us as we have to try to amend what some of these cards actually say. But one Rumsfeld is really, really strong. You're also seeing things in here such as the Campanella package. You're also seeing him play Ray Aznable at 1, which is still a really solid card. And then your basic Falchion package, Spirit Ring, Fountain of the Oblivion Moon. You're playing a Stone Monument that you can search off Daily Research, then grab your Brad or anything else that's a human. And you're also seeing the Institute package as well. So there's nothing like too crazy up here. It's really more of an upgraded Falchion package. And I made it all the way to 2nd place. So if you're a Falchion stan like me, if you really love this ruler and love seeing what it does, it won the GP and got 2nd place. So it's pretty solid as a deck type overall. Congratulations to Matt, and we're going to be moving on to 3rd place here with Paul Martinson being the only player to get into the top cut with the starter deck Aristella. Now, you might all remember that Aristella was banned, right? So how is he playing this? Well, this is the starter deck version. You only get 1 Moonchild. You still get Homeland Cocoon, which is relevant, but your Aristella the Twin Prince in addition to all of your other names. So you still get to use all of the same tools that Aristella Twin Prince got to use, but now you've just been nerfed a little bit by only getting 1 Moonchild. And he's playing one of the best ones. He's playing the Darkness Moonchild, which just, free pop of everything. But then he's opting to play, which I think is really fun. He's playing the Olympian package, right? So he's playing 1 Apollon, Hestia, Poseidon, Artemis, Hades, Aphrodite, Ares, Athena, Hera, Magna, and Lenneth. And then he's also playing a couple of Persephone just because she has some added utility outside of her archetype. And there's just other really good stuff to kind of accelerate that win condition. Things such as Dexia's Advice, which has always been a really strong card with Aristella. But then you're also getting the Invitation to Valhalla, a card that probably most people have never heard of because it saw absolutely 0 play before now. But it recently came to the combination ban list. And so that was being combo banned with the new Brad card. Of course, if you could just get all 4 Brads removed, they just +4 off of this 1 card. But other than that, this card has not seen a lot of play. It kind of makes sense that we're selecting certain things in the deck to get rid of because you want to get rid of some of your Olympians to turn on Union 7. Very powerful card in that regard. It's very similar to Attendant of Asmodeus, but it's something you can cast off of Dexia's Advice. I believe is incorrect, so don't listen to me when I say that. Anyway, this is just a really powerful deck in general. It's still really solid, guys. So in general, congratulations to Paul for getting 3rd place. There's some really interesting things going on here. In addition, before I move on here, Great Dimensional Library was also a very powerful card overall. Helps you get rid of some of your Olympians in your hand and draw into additional cards. So there's a way to get Union 7 there as well. But again, I digress. Congratulations to Paul for getting this. And we're moving on to Todd Sprouse. We're getting 4th place with Killua. Killua has had a really strong reputation as a control deck, but as of late, since Todd topped with this, he's actually playing the more aggressive version of this, right? So he's playing things like the Beginning of a Fairy Tale to give himself 2 flyers, while also drawing an additional card. No Bite, No Fight. He's also playing Gas, Gas, Gas to give his whole board just a ton of stats and different symbol skills to just swing in for game. Obviously, he's also playing Divine Lightning, which has been kind of a very flexible card overall for Killua. So seeing 4 of these now being used to actually go into your Predator contract is pretty interesting. He also gets the full benefit of Killua Fossil Girl in the City by being Killua herself, which is really helpful. This deck was just meant to slam good cards and go fast, and it clearly got him into a good place because he's in the 4th spot in this entire GP. So congratulations to Todd. What an interesting deck. I love seeing it. I'm just glad we finally got an aggro Killua doing her thing. Next up, we have Derek Magwaneza on one of his very notable decks that he's piloted in the past. He's playing Typhon. Now, Typhon has seen a little bit of success lately, and it continues with Derek in his hands. Derek is very much known for playing Typhon. He's done really well with this deck in the past, and we lost something in being able to run antibodies and blood together. But most players have agreed, especially if they've analyzed Typhon a little bit, they recognize that blood is by far more important than antibodies. Not only does it draw you additional cards, it produces you will, and Typhon has always been kind of on the board since we lost Dry Wing's ubiquitous placement in the metagame, losing Origin of the Seven Lands to reveal him quite easily. But now we get to do that almost exclusively because we have this really powerful effect in draw a card, make will, all for free. And so you get to see things like Dark Mage of Mod to get rid of cards. You get to see Fallen Angel of Fiery Vengeance to get out your OG Satan God of the Fallen card. Don't try and read the text. It's a lot. It's a lot. It just, when you're searching, you can remove it from the game, and every time you lose life, you get a counter. It can come in, and there's a number of different things those counters allow you to do. Rip cards from the field, revive things from the graveyard, things like that. If you want to read the full text of that, go ahead and look it up on forceofwind.online, and that'll get you to where you need to go. Of course, Typhon has the restriction of you can only play darkness cards in your main deck. So you're going to be seeing some really interesting things like Dante Enters the Game of Gods, Dark Alice's Smile, Hero Reincarnation, which we haven't seen really played all that much. But you're also going to be seeing one of his personal favorite cards in Astima, the Returnee of Hatred. This card is definitely a staple of Derek's. So whenever he plays Typhon, he plays Astima because he just thinks it's so amazing. Anyway, guys, this is basically Typhon. Linger on this list for a little while and see what you think of it. There's a lot of things going on here that are really, really strong, especially since your arena expansion gives all of your chance quick cast. So just think about how powerful this card is and then do it on your opponent's turn. That seems pretty strong to me. Anyway, guys, that's been Derek's list. Congratulations to Derek for once again topping so well with Typhon. We're moving on to Josh Carone, who got into the top 8 with Loki? Rune Loki, of all things. Obviously, also playing Olympians. Never mind that we're throwing Greek and Nordic mythology into the same pot, but who cares? I don't. This deck was actually really interesting. It relied pretty heavily on using Harvesting Season to discard the top 10 of your deck to kind of get this whole thing going. I've seen that this strategy used primarily with Typhon's antibodies, believe it or not. Speaking of Typhon, just dump a whole bunch of antibodies into the ground and go aggro. This one is using Harvesting Season to dump things like Hestia and Poseidon and Artemis or Aphrodite, all of the Olympians into the graveyard to hit Union 7, and then just swing and do additional damage. Of course, Rumsfeld in decks that are Singleton rulers are pretty good. This doesn't affect your Loki in any way. The rune deck revealing of divinity thing, like that entirely is not an automatic or an activate ability, so it's completely unaffected by Rumsfeld, and it's really good playing into a field where tri-rulers are really, really strong. Of course, while also being Loki yourself, you get access to where is it? I can't, it's not even in the main board. You get to play Neo Ragnarok, which is, I believe, not something you can side into your rune deck if I remember those rules correctly, so I think there was a little bit of a misplay here not including this in the rune deck to begin with, but in general, just very powerful in general. You get to have just 5 cards at the start of the game, which is definitely very powerful and still is very powerful, and this kind of attests to it. That being said, I think I mentioned something about this on the Facebook post where these were all posted online. I'm a little surprised that Setting the Stage for Providence is not in this list, considering that Harvesting Season on turn 1 seems to be so powerful and so necessary for the deck to turn on. Going second, I would want something to protect it from being canceled or removed from the chase in any way. So it's a little surprising we don't see that, but even so, you got into the top 8. So congratulations to Josh. We're going to be moving on to the next list, which is Steven Jeswin, our black-red player of fame and glory. Here we are with the new Electra. So Electra's whole gimmick is I'm going to be looking at armaments. I'm going to be looking at all of the different armaments that I could possibly play, which are the ones like over here. Basically, her whole gimmick then will see cards in her main deck, reveal armaments from her Armament.exe deck, while also seeing armaments in her side deck, her high armaments being revealed, such as the Cursed Sword, etc. Heavy armaments like these, high armaments like these are really game changers, and the fact that you get to select which ones get to come out is pretty important. The rest of these all come out relatively randomly, so being able to choose which armament you want to reveal from your sideboard is a really powerful effect of her contracts. Playing Phantasmal Ascendant, amazing card, probably one of the best red cards ever printed, honestly. Rayman to reveal a card from your armament deck while also getting some buffs on that. Carmilla, probably one of the more powerful cards the deck has access to. Can come out relatively easily. You can upgrade relatively easily all of your armaments as well, and it just gets really powerful effects when it hits the field. Demon of the Crimson Moon, this thing gets essentially just cheaper for every armament you have. If you have an armament or a high armament, you lose 1 black to its cost, which means it comes out as a 1-drop 8/8 with natural flying, and then it does 10 damage to target player or J Resonator, and then you gain that life. So it's a 2,000 life point swing, which is really at the end of the day, that's a 2,000 life point difference, and that's really powerful. Having a couple of those is never a bad thing. Intel the Dark Cloud allows you to upgrade stuff, so you're getting new armaments with your red cards, and you're upgrading them with your black cards. And then you're playing Shub Niggurath. This card is absolutely insane, and I love it. The fact that you can just do so many funny things with these. Fire Chance you control, if they would deal damage, they do that much, plus 400 instead, which is so funny, especially in combination with things like the Last Sacred Sword, which now do, 14, 18, 100 damage. Blade Dance suddenly does a lot more damage too. There's just really interesting things you get there, but the number one card that I'm most excited for in this entire list is Silencing Spell. So this is adding to a resonator, and according to the judges at the tournament, and this is one of the things that I was really interested to learn about, this card gets around barrier because it doesn't necessarily target the resonator. It is just this card needs to be added to a resonator, and you can select your opponent's stuff even if it has barrier. Just by the way that addition resonator cards work, that is being contested a little bit. I know there's still some questions around whether or not that's actually the way it works, but for the tournament, that's the way it was worked, and that means that your opponent has to pay 2 more to play anything, which effectively says you don't get to play anything at all. It's just a silence for your opponent if they decide to put anything on board. It's kind of amazing, and for this tournament and that particular ruling, that was really powerful. So really glad to see Silencing Spell actually seeing some play. It was never really viable outside of right now, but wow, it's bursting onto the scene and it's doing its work. Congratulations, Steven, for getting into the top 8. And then I think this is our last list. It is indeed. It's the one and only Steven Holsheiser on Asuka. So he's playing basically your standard Asuka variation. There's a life loss loop here with Transformed, being able to discard your opponent's hand and drain them for 4 life. Seems pretty good. But in general, you're seeing a really standard list. He's actually even including the Explosion of Magog. I would like to know more, Steven, if you're with us right now, why you decided to pilot this card, and tell us more, because there was a really big debate on the Force of Will podcast that we have here on the Ruler School channel about whether or not this card is actually good or not. So seeing that you got top 8 with it in your list, I'm really curious as to your reasoning. Otherwise, you're seeing just like really good spells and other good stuff. You're seeing Memory of Worlds being played, Fair Spell, very underrated. I'm really glad Steven Holsheiser included it in his list. It kind of gives validity to what I've been saying for a long time. Look of Corruption, very strong card. Probably the premier discard spell outside of something like Lint of Insight. And then basically the whole deck, it does what it's always done. Blow up a bunch of stuff. Mill, if you have 7 in your grave, you flip into End of Night. and then you recover things. The reason this deck I think gets a little bit more viability now too, and the reason why we're actually seeing it top, is because Angelic Battle Barrier is gone, which totally shut off End of Night. Because End of Night cast those cards. Angelic Battle Barrier was really easy to play against this. So we're seeing Asuka starting to come back a little bit, which is really fun to see. And we're also seeing fun things like Mamu finally getting played to like recover stuff from your graveyard. Super fun to see in general. So guys, let me know what you thought of this tournament down in the comment section down below. Of all the decks that I'm most excited about in this entire lineup of top 8, it's probably the Loki list. It really gives validity to the idea that Rumsfeld is probably more of a boon to Singleton rulers, which is something they've desperately needed in order to survive in the modern metagame. And just seeing how the Rune deck is actually getting a little bit of love with things like Harvest Season means that, who knows, we could actually see decks like this, if they're being experimented with and we finally get those cards into people's hands, who knows, we might actually see some of this stuff starting to surface once again. Anyway guys, let me know what you thought of this down in the comment section down below. Like I just said, give this video a like, hit the subscribe button, and ring that bell for more content like this. And this has been Paul. Hope you've enjoyed the video. I've enjoyed having you around. Peace.